Traveling and speaking widely on health and management topics, Dr. Chandy has been invited to several national and international forums as a resource person. We are privileged to have you here with us today. Please put your hands together for Dr. Sunil Chandy.
Morning, friends. From an IAS officer to a doctor is a wide jump. So I have to change your mind from the left side of the brain to the right side with this video. Watch this.
Someone help! Someone!
So I want to start with this question, and I'm asking myself this each time I see this video. Who am I in this video? Who are you in this video? This is an enacted sequence, but the onlookers are genuine. He's just shown to die, but he actually gets up and teaches the watching crowd on a few life lessons. But if this were to happen on the road just opposite the hotel, where will you be? Will you be the victim? Will you be the onlooker? Or will you be the Samaritan? So let me start with this thought, just to briefly tell you my story. I was born in this holy city of Varanasi up in Uttar Pradesh, the seat of ancient Hindu culture. But after I finished school, God catapulted me into the seat of Christian culture, Christian Medical College, Vellore. Why? I'm still discovering. But as Wilfred said, it was in God's good design that it all happened that way. Today I find myself not just a physician, a specialist working there, but also in a very empowered position as director of this great institution, a position that I certainly did not deserve. So there are three phases to my life, 17 to 32 years. I'm ignoring the school phase, but 17 to 32 years was a period of learning. Obviously, for most of us, training for the domain that you belong to and receiving. Most of the time, you were being fed. Teachers, parents, you were receiving, you had no strength of your own. The next phase of my life was earning. Obviously, you become an intern and a postgraduate and you start your career. It is in that second phase of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is about establishing your credentials and getting job security, getting married, having a family, looking for a place to settle down, so on and so forth. It's a kind of receiving, but it's actually gathering on everything that you can to give you some kind of stability towards your life ahead. And the Maslow's apical portion of 50 years and above, into which slot I now belong, is about discerning, is about getting insights, fulfillment, and a phase of giving. I think it happens to all of us because we stop looking at our pay slips, especially in Vellore, because it's not worth looking at. But even if it is, it doesn't matter to you because life has taken a different wavelength. Receiving doesn't give you the fulfillment anymore. So you're looking at how you can actualize yourself, the phase of self-actualization. So there are three phases of my life, and I will take you through this presentation with these three questions, three life lessons, and three challenges that we see from a physician's perspective. Jesus did three things when he was on this earth. Matthew chapter 4, 23 to 25. And it's very clearly said that his mission was threefold. One is he taught in the synagogues, he preached the good news, and although he was not a doctor, he healed every disease and sickness in people. Those who have the Bible can refer to it. Every disease. So he was a generalist and a specialist as well. If you look at the miracles that Jesus did, of course he did very magical things like converting water to wine, calming the storm, feeding the 5,000, feeding the 4,000, and all kinds of things. But the majority of the work he did, 70%, was to do with physical ailments. If you look at Matthew chapter 8 and 9, you will see a sequence of chronicled miracles, all relating to health and disability. He healed the leper, the centurion, Peter's mother-in-law, the demonized person, the paralytic, the dead girl, the sick woman, the blind man, so on and so forth. It is accounted that 70% of his miracles had to do with healthcare, although he was not a doctor. And therefore that has relevance to much of what I am going to tell you in this talk. I want to make this metaphorical statement. He didn't do MBBS, but I want to believe, just for argument, that Jesus was a medical missionary. Just like you and like me. And therefore, there are three things that are important as far as Christian leadership is concerned. Every doctor must do the same thing that Jesus did. Teach, preach, and heal. And this is why doctors are not effective today, because they do one or two of these. But a complete doctor in the spirit of Christ, a Christian doctor, will do all three. He will do healing as a primary mission, teach, and preach. So this is what I want to present, the perspective of my life thus far as a physician. So the three questions that I want to ask you is, who am I? I'm asking myself, you can ask yourself this as well. Who are you? Who am I? What am I doing in this hall or in the profession that you are in, and where are you going from here? Who really are you? Watch this video. This is at an airport counter, check-in counter.
אתה לא נראה כמו בתמונה.
לא, בתמונה אני משקפיים, אז אולי עכשיו.
עדיין לא.
עכשיו?
זה קצת יותר דומה, אבל זה עדיין לא כמו בתמונה.
עכשיו?
זה מתקרב, אבל זה עדיין לא דומה. אתה בטוח שזה הדרכון שלך?
עכשיו?
ברוך הבא לישראל.
תסלם.
We all have our external appearances. We wear good clothes, we comb our hair, and when we go to work, we are completely different from who we really are. But we need to ask ourselves, who really am I deep down? You know, when the door is shut and I'm inside my room, who really am I? I have asked myself this question. And I think there are three perspectives. One, as a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm a physician, and in my position, I am unfortunately a leader. It's not easy to be, but these are the things that must converge onto your workplace, your home, your life, your traveling, everything else. So what does it mean to be a Christian? Especially from a healthcare leader point of view. As Wilfred said, Christian means being Christ-like, and if you look at his life, it was all about service, integrity, excellence, and dependence on God. The Son of God himself, at every point that he needed and he could, he would withdraw and draw energy from God. Service. He was a perfect servant leader. In fact, the whole concept of servant leadership has got biblical origins. Today, the secular world talks big about it, but it actually is rooted in the Bible for us. Life of integrity, and we'll talk about that a little later. As a physician, I think there are several roles that one can play, and it's a privilege to be these 5 things. A clinician by the bedside, and there's no greater joy than to be by somebody who needs a little help from you as an empowered person. A scientist by the bench, and today in India, science is no longer recognized as an ethically correct or morally sound service because there's cheating, plagiarism. And this is where, as a Christian scientist, you can make a difference. A missionary at the borders of the country, a teacher by the blackboard, an administrator in the boardroom. This is a familiar picture, and it is, as you know, it's about the Good Samaritan. But I have a different set of interpretations to this very popular story. This is all about being in order to do. And if you look at the life of the Samaritan from his perspective, he had to be something in order to have done that. To me, this parable from a medical perspective has got these following connotations. It's a parable of the traveler. We all travel, we all go, and then you saw the modern Good Samaritan story in that video. Exactly what happened 2,000 years ago. People passed by ignoring the guy who was injured and troubled. It's a parable of the courageous compassion. It needed courage on the part of the Samaritan to go and do what he did. If he had not decided to do that extra bit, nothing would have happened. And I think a Christian life is all about doing that little extra thing. As again, Wilfred described, there are so many extra things that one needs to do if we are in leadership positions. So it's a parable of the extra mile. And it's also about doing something complete. Today, we are in a reductionist world where we want to treat the headache, leave the tummy. Treat the gastro problem, leave the headache. Go to this hospital, go to that hospital. But that one physician who takes you from your initial complaint, look after your pocket like this man did. He not only dressed his wounds, he was not a doctor, he probably tore his tunic to do that. He put him on the same donkey and walked with him backwards. He puts him in an inn and says, I'm going my way, but I'll come back. And if there is a bill, I will take care of that as well. Holistic care. This is what India lacks today. And this is what Ida Scudder did, and this has been an inspiration for us, that she was not building a medical college, but through the building of a medical college, she was building the kingdom of God. And as a student and staff of this college, we are constantly reminded that the larger vision of being part of the medical fraternity is to build the kingdom of God. 3 life lessons, and I hope this won't take too much of time. These are personal stories which I want to tell you. In 1986, I had just got married, and the scenario is the Indo-Nepal border. And the first story is about 2 young interns who had just joined this very remote hospital, full of energy, knowledge, excitement. One of them was me, the other was my wife. On one night, there was a lady who had 3 grams of hemoglobin, which is 1/4 of what you should have, pregnant in labor. And there was a senior doctor who asked me, what do you want to do? And I was taught in CMC Vellore, 3 grams hemoglobin, no surgery. It's risky. So you have to transfuse or refer the patient. So pat came the answer from me. I said, transfer the patient to Patna, to Kurji Hospital, because it's not possible to do it. She asked me, do you know how far Patna is? And do you know that she will not even survive the journey? And she said, come with me. And we went into theater, and she operated with a 3 grams hemoglobin. And the child and the mother were discharged, hale and hearty. And here was I, taught in the best medical college in India, that 3 grams is a contraindication to surgery. That was my first eye-opener. And this is a statement, that knowledge is not wisdom, and experience is the best teacher. Always. The second story is also in 1986, but this time The patient is my wife. She is pregnant with our first child. There's no scan, there's no blood bank in this hospital. And despite her parents asking her to return back to Kerala, I opted that she will not, against their wish. And she went 1 week post-date. And it was discovered that she had placenta previa, which I don't know how many of you know. It means that the placenta is at the mouth of the uterus, will not allow the child to be delivered. No blood bank, okay? So a scene very similar to what you see in Hindi movies was done. Fortunately, my blood group and her blood group is the same. So there's a learning point here. If you're planning to fall in love, please check your fiance's. It comes in use. Anyway, jokes apart, it was operated and we had a bonny baby boy born in this remote hospital in the foothills of Himalayas. Anything and everything could have gone wrong. I was a disobedient son-in-law who refused to send my wife to the parents, as is customary. And there was no blood bank. There was no obstetrician. This lady is a generalist. But nothing happened. In fact, my second child, who was born in Vellore, had a lot more problems. But this was an eye-opener that God is in control, always, despite the worst of circumstances. The third story is about several years later when I become a specialist. I'm a cardiologist, and I saw a husband and wife team whose husband had bad heart disease, and he was to be operated a week from the time he saw me. He told me, I know I'm sick, but I want to make sure my wife is all right. I said, okay, fair enough. What do you want to do? I want an angiogram done on her. I said, but she doesn't have a problem. No, I just want to make sure we have 2 small children. So we complied. We did an angiogram on this asymptomatic wife of his and found that she had major problems in one of the arteries. He said, I want that fixed first. We went ahead and did that. 3 days later, she bled and died. This man was in shambles. He came to me and said, Doctor, what happened? I said, I have no explanations other than feel sorry and apologize and pray for you. What do my children do? I had no answers. He did not have his treatment. He went back. I was pretty sure I'll never see him again because his disease was so bad. But he came back 3 years later and plonked himself in front of me. He said, Dr. Saab, namaste. He was from West Bengal. He almost fell at my feet. I was shocked because I thought he'll be angry and irritated, but he was thankful. What we did was to help him at the last funeral rites of the chaplaincy department came and helped. And he went back a very content man. This is the third learning point, that medicine and technology will fail. And an otherwise expected irate patient became a complete fan of CMC. Tender loving care was far more enduring and endearing, given by the chaplains and the staff. So heart and hands definitely supersede head. This is the learning that I received from these experiences. Where are we going from here? I will just quickly go through this just to highlight that India is changing rapidly. And it is into this India that you and I are being released, either as civil servants or doctors or engineers or contractors or whatever. You just look at the humongous changes that are going on. Some good, some bad. Our population starting to our economy, to the inversion of money and time relationship, to poverty of abundance. Today our poverty is not because we don't have something, it's that we have too much of everything. Too many cars, too many vehicles. You go to a departmental store, there's nothing called not available. If it's not in the front, it's in the back. If it's not in the back, it's in the back room. If it's not in the back room, it's in the go down. If it's not in the go down, it's online. You will get it. So but you look at this, that there is a poverty of empathy, and this is a real story from 2016. Watch this. is the story of a man in Orissa who had everything in the town that he lived in, a government hospital, ambulance drivers, but they wouldn't help him because he refused to bribe. So he had to carry the dead body of his wife 12 kilometers to the funeral site. This is India 70 years after it has become independent, talking about the biggest economy of recent times. We also know that a child was refused treatment in New Delhi, 4 hospitals. The child died, the parents committed suicide. This is the city of Delhi in November 2016. Completely unlivable. Children choked, not able to go to school. Polluted, choked, and completely unlivable. In some Bimaru states, female neonates are just dumped into dustbins. Aseptic techniques are not followed in hospitals. Surgical gowns are not used in surgeries in some villages. Somewhere in India, all this is happening. So it is in this milieu that we are going in, existing. So what should you as Christian leaders do? This is a constant struggle. There's a decline of ethics and values, be it medicine or politics or bureaucracy or construction industry. Our planet, as I showed you, is in peril. It is understated. But we are going to reach a stage where we will have to pay for the air that we breathe. The best things in life are free. God has given free air, free water. Today we pay for water. Tomorrow we'll be paying for air. Imagine if we have to pay for the air that we breathe in this room at the rate that they charge in the ICU, oxygen. I think the salaries will all have to be made 3 times, 4 times. So we are generally going into an unhealthy world. So there are 3 challenges that we face. For me, being in a position of leadership, this is what I have discovered. That if you want, you can wreck the system. There's so much of power and authority. Again, Wilfred said that. But the beauty of being in positions of power, in a position of a director, is not to have power over people, but give power to people. Delegation, empowerment is the best privilege that a leadership position has. It's an opportunity to help. You can refuse help saying, no, you pay the bill, otherwise don't even come. Or you can say, I don't care whether you pay or not. I'll take care of you because you need help. Enhance the environment, augment systems. We have a role to play in social transformation, water, sanitation, traffic, accidents. That is what is called thy kingdom come. Just to repeat what Wilfred said, to build God's kingdom on earth. You lead, it's not easy, but lead with courage. You will make mistakes. For sure you will make mistakes. I have made plenty of mistakes. But if God is with you, He can convert those mistakes into victory. The Christian faith or the Christian ethos has these legacies. The legacy of faith, the legacy of compassion, the legacy of love, the legacy of building. If we don't build, we will perish. Sadly, the Christian church is decimating its assets and selling them off. No other religion does it. We have to be watchful. And the legacy of family, which is what we are. I'm not talking about blood family, but the larger family of Christ. I can say this is true for me. I was never the brightest student, but I can testify to this, that when God calls you, He may not call you because you're the brightest and the best. But once He calls you, He qualifies you. And that's why from an ordinary country boy in Varanasi, playing marbles in the city of Varanasi, to my present position has been an experience of empowerment and qualification by God. So therefore, the Christian mandate is to be the salt. 2.6% of India doesn't matter. We can be small, but we can be the leavening agents. We can be transforming. Be the light. Don't hide, but put it on the stool. Let your good works be shown before men. This is what we don't do as a Christian community. To be in order to do, not to do in order to be. And be the best. Christ did everything towards excellence. Thank you.